to Season 3 of CFMA's Chat with the Chairman. I'm your host, CFMA's 2022-23 Chair, Tom Borgia. For those of you that have watched Chat with the Chairman previously, this season will be a little bit different. Instead of getting to know guests in a traditional interview format, we're going to have quick hit question and answer sessions with multiple people here today. So at the end of the chat, we'll have the opportunity to ask our guests to ask me anything. Today I'm coming to you live from CFMA's 2022 Annual Conference and Exhibition in Atlanta. Today my guests are Bryant, Principal at Plante Moran, Jeannie Spencer, the Director of Finance and Partner at Bremik Construction, and Mike Zamora, Controller at Star Paving. Thank you all for joining me today. Let's get started with our questions. As a first-time CFMA Annual Conference attendee, what advice would you give to those who have not been to a CFMA conference before? Jeannie, we'll start with you.
Start with me. What advice? So this is my first time, so obviously I'm realizing I should have been better organized. My schedule needs to be so I figured out the app, but didn't quite plug my schedule in, so I'm constantly going back and forth. So being organized so that you don't miss anything or be late for something.
Okay, very good answer. Bradley, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to go along the same lines. I would just say make sure you read the details, look at all the conference has to offer. We're kind of partially through it at this point, and it's been a great experience. But luckily I have good friends like Jeannie that I run into, and she's like, hey, there's this nice event that you can go to, whether it's off-site or on-site. So I just think that the conference has so much to offer. I probably should have spent more time preparing for it and realizing all of the different options that I had kind of at our fingertips.
All right, good to know. Thank you. Mike, how about you? What advice would you give to those that have not been to the conference before?
So for those who have not been, I would first off say to come. Don't find an excuse to not come. Between the networking opportunities, the educational opportunities, and there's also a little bit of fun mixed in there. I recommend coming. And secondly, I would recommend that they download the app, because the app has been very helpful for scheduling purposes.
Great, good to know. So next question, let's jump right in. You all joined me last year at Spring Creek. What was your big aha moment from your time there? Mike, let's start with you. What was the aha moment at Spring Creek?
Thank you. It was a good time. So before we went out there, we were asked to read a book. It was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It was a great book to read. I recommend it to anybody. But in that book, Stephen Covey talked about listening. I thought I was a good listener, but I was listening to respond. And he talks about listening to understand. And we worked on that at Spring Creek, and I'm still working on it to this day.
Excellent. Jeannie, how about you? What was the aha moment?
So I think my biggest was I always feel like I'm too busy to do certain things, like too busy, I don't have time for that, I can't do that. And one of the exercises that we did was time management. And so it drilled way down. It was like, first of all, what do you spend your time on? Then it was like, how many hours? And you go through this whole thing and you do a whole week. And I realized I have tons of time. I have a ton of time if I actually pay attention to what I'm doing. So I've been more mindful about it since Spring Creek, to pay attention to what I'm doing and do things that I think I don't have time to do.
Gotcha. Very, very nice. Great answer. Bradley, how about you? What was the aha moment?
Yeah, those were great answers. I'll go a different direction. So one of the things that I really took from it were the different sessions we had that were ran by the fun coach, Todd, and just seeing the way that he kind of worked the room. And one of the things that I guess realized I haven't been doing a good job of is if I'm running a meeting, you tend to have contributors and you tend to have people that are maybe a little more passive, but that doesn't mean they don't have great ideas and they don't have things to bring to the table. So I really enjoyed realizing and even just observing how he was able to draw different responses out of people, and kind of the instruction of how you can be a better leader by making sure that people are involved and taking that time and using different methods to make sure that we hear everyone's ideas, that everyone gets a voice, because collectively, you're going to have stronger outcomes when that happens.
For sure. I think one of the things for our viewers out there, Spring Creek is an opportunity for leaders within our chapters to get together, have some professional development and some personal development as well. I think I shared with you guys, I was there in 2011, and a lot of the things we did back then were the same as we did together last year, but there were also some new things, and I always catch myself going back 10 years, 11 years in time now, and using some of those things that Todd Davis and Marcia Davis taught us back then about time management, about listening. That's something I think we can all probably do a little bit better as well, right? And then understanding the people that are at your table. To your point, sometimes you think you really understand the other person, and sometimes you don't, right? Sometimes we realize we don't. So Spring Creek was a great experience, obviously for me as well, and sounds like it was for you guys also. So let's jump into the third question. We'll go a little personal on this one. So when you're not working, what is one thing you love to do? Bradley, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I have 4 children, and obviously the pandemic was difficult being locked inside originally and not really able to go anywhere. So one of the things that we had always enjoyed doing, but maybe we didn't do as great of a job of because we were busy, was just getting outdoors and hiking. So we made it a point every week, kind of once we hit the spring of the pandemic, to get outside and do a hike. We did that a lot as a family. We did some pretty aggressive ones afterwards. Like, wow, we brought our 4 kids along on that. That was kind of aggressive, but it worked out. And now it's something that our family all enjoys together, and it's kind of turned into a little bit of a tradition.
Nice, nice. Mike, how about you?
So I am an avid sports fan, but I have one favorite team out of all, and it's the San Francisco 49ers. I just grew up loving my Niners, and I was able to, in 2019 when they went to the NFC Championship game, I was able to attend the game with my dad.
Okay.
So it was kind of like a bucket list moment. We had a blast. They broke my heart that year. They keep breaking my heart, but I still love them.
There's only
Teams do.
that's for sure. There's only one winner every year, and I mean I think it's pretty cool to be able to get there with your father, especially as a bucket list item. That's pretty cool to hear. So I'm glad to hear you're such a passionate fan. Jeannie, how about you? When you're not working, what's one thing you love to do?
Well, much different from the guys. Shopping.
Shopping.
I am a shopaholic. My husband says I'm addicted. I just think I'm really good at it. And it's gotten to where I buy so much that I resell it too. So he's always just like, you're just like recycle. It's like a whole. How about you just don't do anything? I'm like, I like to do it.
There's no fun in that,
Right.
right? There's no fun
Right.
in that.
So.
Sounds like a pretty good hobby for sure, for sure. Awesome. Well, let's jump in. It's your guys' turn to ask me anything. So Bradley, why don't we start with you? Throw me any question that's on your mind, and I'll do my best to give you my best answer.
Yeah, so in preparation for your new role as the chair, what was the best piece of leadership advice that you received?
Really, really good question. There's probably 50 different pieces of advice, and I think one of the cool things about CFMA is there's so many leaders, and I'm not even really just talking about the officers in general, but just leaders throughout the country to give advice. And the 2 that always come back to me are really enjoy the ride, right? So I think sometimes, I guess you go back to the old, you got to smell the roses, right? And it's one of those things where, hey, it's going to feel like your hair, the little bit of hair I have is still on fire, and you're just so busy with so many things, but actually sit back, enjoy the ride for what it is, because it's an experience you'll never forget. So that's really one of the pieces of advice. The other one I would say, and it kind of goes to your answer a couple minutes ago, is to be able to listen. I think it's a lost art, listening is nowadays. Many people, like you said, they listen to respond, they don't listen to process, right? And so I'm not phenomenal at it, and I'm getting better throughout the years, but just the advice to listen to people, hear what they have to say, process it, and sometimes you don't have to say anything back. You just being able to listen is such an important skill. So those are probably the 2 best pieces of advice that I've taken from many pieces of advice that have been given to me for the next year. So great question, thank you. Jeannie, your shot.
So along the lines of my time management piece, since you've become chairman, how do you balance it all? Work, family, CFMA, all of it.
Good question as well. It's a challenge for sure, and I think at the end of the day, it really comes to a couple different pieces being able to come together on being able to support me doing this. So the first and foremost, my wife and my kids and my family, they're behind me in this, and I think I wouldn't be able to be in this role if it wasn't for my family giving me the support that I need to be able to travel for CFMA, meet members, and do all the things we do. So that's really point 1. Point 2 is at the office, right? So we all have a day job as well, and so I'm passionate and committed to CFMA, but I've got a great team of people in the office in Orlando that help get work done, and it's very seamless with such a great team to get things done that allows me to get out and travel and see people. And then I would tell you the balance isn't always 50-50. Sometimes, just like anybody else, work is up here and family's down here, but it's a shift, and it's a pendulum that you've got to try to right size almost every single day. But I'm not 100% great at it, and sometimes I certainly fail, but I like to think I'm doing a pretty good job trying to keep the balance. So great question. Mike, what you got?
So I'm going to ask you a lot more lighthearted of a question.
We're deep.
We grilled him a little bit.
Yeah, so I like to think of myself as somewhat of a music buff. So I'd like to know what's on your playlist right now.
Awesome, great question, and one that I'd love to answer. So if you looked at my playlist right now, I'm probably all over the place. You would look at me and say, okay, hey, I might be a conservative financial manager, CFP, but I do love my Metallica. I do. I am a hardcore Metallica fan. There is a Metallica song as a song for the conference this week that you guys will hear as I come out one of my sessions, which will be nice, which is a little bit different. But I also have Chicago. I've got Journey. I've got Def Leppard. I could beat out Barry Manilow, no problem, in a heartbeat. Air Supply, you name it. I've even recently gotten into more of like the piano guys type stuff, and like Lindsey Sterling and stuff that's just violin. I mean, I just love music, and I think the cool part for me is many people listen to music for the words and what the message is. I'm actually the exact opposite. I'm all about the beat, right? And so a few songs here and there's things that I'll take in and say, all right, you know what, that's pretty cool what they're saying in the song. But for me, it's just the sound. And music it's almost a 24/7 thing for me. If I'm somewhere and I've got music, I've either got the AirPods in, I've got music on in the office, but it goes all over the place. And so when people walk into the office to talk to me for a couple minutes, they'll walk in and say, hey, is that Metallica playing on the radio behind them? Well, sure is. And the next person comes in and it's Barry Manilow singing Mandy or something like that.
Quite the range.
That's the same exact guy. So I love my music. It's a passion. I'm a big time sports guy and a big time music guy as well. So awesome question. So Mike, Jeannie, Bradley, this was a lot of fun today, getting to know you, and I appreciate you guys taking the time as Spring Creek attendees and first-time conference attendees to join us on Chat with the Chairman today. So thank you, each of you, for spending a couple minutes. I know your schedules are very busy, and you got plenty of things to do, but appreciate you taking the time. And for everybody out there, looking forward to catching up next month with the next Chat with the Chairman, where we find some new folks to talk CFMA, professional, and personal growth. Until then, we'll catch you soon.